Hi, welcome to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are making a difference in our community. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, President and CEO of Universal Financial Consultants Corporation, where we teach people how money works every day. Knowledge is power, and understanding how the institutional world thinks gives you the competitive edge you need to succeed. Along with me today are my co-hosts, Arias of A.V. Arias & Company, a firm that specializes in tax strategy, or, more plainly stated, the art of learning how to keep what's rightfully yours.
That's me.
And certainly not your everyday tax preparation firm. And also with us from our very own financialnewsandtalk.com, the lovely and talented Andrea Kaye.
That would be me.
That would be you.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you guys again.
Great. Glad to have you. So what do we have going on this week? We have Charger game at home.
Yes, we do.
We do. I saw one of our guests came in fully dressed in Charger garb today.
Yes.
That's good.
So fingers crossed for the Chargers.
Yeah, let's see if we can get them to break out of their funk from last week. So, and we have some great guests today. We have David King from the King Law Group. Tom Van Betten from Cassidy, Turley, a commercial real estate firm. And we've saved for last Gina, Champion-Cain, who has some unique processes in restaurants and land development and what have you.
Yeah, she's what I like to call a hot witch, you know? I mean, she, she's fabulous and gorgeous and super successful, and just she's brought some of the best development areas to San Diego. So I'm super excited to hear what she's got on her plate.
It's a very, very diverse group. So
yeah, it is. Great group
really
of people.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're all, San Diego businesses, San Diego people. So that's exciting.
That's what it's all about, is finding local people that are doing something to make a difference. Al, you're at the tail end of your heated season here. How are things in the tax world?
The tail end is now the excitement builds. We're doing all planning. I was there at my office in my home till 2 a.m. this morning, winding up a piece for a healthcare professional that's a junkie for entities.
Oh.
He only has 15 entities.
My goodness.
Right? And so this is my first time around. When we're done, he will have fewer than half of those entities, because we're going through combinations and putting the ducks in a row in a fashion that's going to save him $300,000 in 13.
Wow.
That's great.
So when most people right now are looking at, October 15th, and, they filed their little extension in April, they carried them till October, and they've got their little, short form. I mean, that's so far in the rearview mirror for you and your type and the people you work with, right, Al?
It's about planning, baby.
Yeah.
Well, tell me something, Al. Your firm, I know what you do for the high income earner. Okay. Do you have staff that handles your routine businesses and individuals, or do you focus strictly on the tax strategy?
Well, it's a team environment, so
right.
Strategy is just the start point,
right.
And implementation is where it all ends. So I have a total count of 20 bodies to handle the implementation. Implementation is where it's at. Mm-hmm. So great plans. It's like for the estate planner. You come up with a great estate plan and then don't implement. Okay.
So for somebody like you who had 15 entities and you said you've cut that in half, I mean, that wasn't just something you came up with this past week because you're looking at an October 15 deadline, right? This is something that sounds like you've been planning for him and having to put in the works for a while, or am I wrong?
Well, no, it's the initial work that produces the big long-term benefits. So right now, there's just too many entities. They're in the way of each other. There's not the use of multiple fiscal years end and like that. So, the idea is to put the ducks in a row in a fashion that produces dramatic results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say saving somebody over $300,000 is pretty dramatic.
It's just year one.
Wow. That's like Al should get best. Is it best leading actor
Best
in the tax business?
I think it's something behind the scenes. He lets everybody else get the leading roles.
Well, it's about having some fun. I mean, we have fun when we're doing the work.
Yeah, that's the one thing most people don't understand is how do you have fun with taxes? Well, I guess you have to be a professional. So.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the type of work that you do? How do you deal with it when clients are not real reactive, since they have to operate multiple entities? And I see you get very active with them to help them manage those entities one way or another. What do you do when clients don't react or respond, or they're too busy to do things? How do you deal with all that?
We do it. So the idea, I have an outsourcing capacity that cuts the implementation cost, the administrative costs in half. So, for example, to do anything and make it safe, you have to keep records. You have to keep logs of the effort hours. You have to keep logs of the use of equipment. You have to. There's a lot of substantiation requirements. And if you don't handle the requirements, you're at risk. And the first time you're challenged, you're going to go down, at least in part. So it's all about finding a way to comply that is comfortable for the taxpayer, for the client, and is administratively worth it. So you have to find a way to cut the cost. The clients, if the clients will keep the logs, which, I mean, I have over 500 clients, and if I have 5 that keep their records right, that's about it, especially the personal records. So we handle, for the 500 clients, we get it handled.
Interesting.
For all 500, but you can't. It can't be where all 500 people need, the same amount of support, though, right?
Right. It varies all over.
Yeah. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with co-hosts Andrea Kaye and Al Arias. So, yeah, one of the things that I noticed in working with you with some of our clients is the level of detail you get into with your integrated tax plans. That was quite a big help when you not only can see the steps that are needed, but also the action plan, when you need to do things, times, dates, everything. It was all laid out really well. You just need to get the clients to read it now and then.
Yeah, clients are too, especially the ones that are highly successful, they're too busy making money.
Yeah.
They're not interested in implementation. They're not interested in the stuff that makes a difference if you're challenged. So we have to, because they're not interested, we have to find a way to handle all of that. So, yeah, we have everything written down. It says who's going to do it and when. And when the client doesn't do their part, we do it. I mean, they have to pay for it. But, if you keep the price right, they're not happy. Nobody's ever happy when they have to pay.
Right.
If they're having to pay taxes, if they're having to pay advisors, if they're having to pay, they don't like it. So the idea is to make it palatable.
And then when you provide results like the client you were talking about up front, a savings of $300,000, then they're happy, though, right?
Yeah,
well, they're happier.
Yeah.
You know why Al has to save them money year in and year out, because the world is out there and says, what have you done for me lately? So if Al saves them $300,000 this year, they're going to look at him next year expecting the same thing. Yeah,
well, that's the strategic part. So we're able to deliver those savings year in and year out.
Great. So anything hot on the horizon? Anything in business? Anywhere you're looking for new clients right now? Anything that's coming up in the future?
Well, we're always looking for new clients.
Right.
And what's driving them to us right now is changes in laws.
Right.
The change in the state tax laws, the changes in income tax laws, estate taxes have gone way down.
Right.
And so the strategy has reversed, where it was about making lifetime transfers. You don't make, for most people, you don't make lifetime transfers. You go for a step up in basis, and that creates an environment where income taxes take the lead.
Yeah.
Income taxes have always taken the lead because they're every year.
Right.
But now, strategically, they take the lead.
Okay, great. Hey, you're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working to make a difference in our community. This is financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more homegrown business Close Up and our first guest.
This is the Bloomberg Green Business Report. I'm John Bascom. At a sprawling complex of offices in southeast China built to house 170 solar power vendors, only 5 remain. Locked doors and empty offices are what's left of the government's audacious plan to dominate the global solar industry. What happened in Xinyu is being replicated all across China, which used subsidies and more than $47 billion of credit to take the supremacy away from Germany and the U.S. It also saddled the industry with losses for at least 2 years. An analyst at S&P Capital IQ in New York predicts more smaller solar companies are going to continue to fall one by one, and when it all shakes out, there will be 10 to 12 still standing. The others will either go bankrupt or be consolidated. China's solar industry now accounts for 7 out of every 10 solar panels produced worldwide, as sales in Europe and the U.S. have soared thanks to government incentives. With this Bloomberg Green Business Report, I'm John Bascom.
Welcome back to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we're looking at homegrown businesses close up. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here on financialnewsandtalk.com with Andrea Kaye, Arias, and our first guest, David King from the King Law Group. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Barry.
So tell us a little bit about your firm. What type of law do you practice?
I practice corporate law, which is kind of a broad term for transactional work, helping people sell their businesses, helping people set up their businesses, doing general counsel services, day in, day out, contract negotiations. I also handle business disputes between owners and try and get those resolved quickly so that the life of the business is preserved.
That's great. It looks to me like you were a CPA before you became an attorney?
I was a CPA. I practiced corporate securities law on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley. And then I've had my own shop since 2004. It's a different art being able to serve small to medium-sized businesses.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. One of the things that I see a lot in my practice is, what we do is planning. We do financial planning, we do retirement planning, we do tax planning, we do all forms of planning. And we try to take it down to a level that the client can understand. The main thing that I see from your firm, which is really impressive, is the fact that you deal with your own type of planning, and that's uncommon to the law industry. Tell me how you work with setting up plans for clients once you gather a new client.
Absolutely. And the thing to remember about planning is that it has to start on day one. I can help someone efficiently plan to sell their business from the day they start their business. If someone comes in on the eve of a sale of a business and say, hey, can you quickly help me? No, there's nothing that can be done quickly on the eve of a sale except identify problems that should have been addressed earlier. So if you start on day one, you can do things right. You can walk away with more money. You can get a better price for your company and avoid all the pitfalls that might come if you wait until the last minute to finally get an attorney engaged.
Yeah. Well, it seems kind of antithetical. It almost sounds like some people might say, well, why do I want to plan to sell my business if I just started my business? That's kind of like a prenup before you get married. It's like you're already planning for divorce. I mean, help me understand why you want to start thinking about selling your business when you're even even just starting it, maybe.
Absolutely. It's more that you're planning for your business to be successful. If your business is going to be successful, it should survive you. And I've seen businesses where people, hand it along to their children. Often those aren't the best people to be running a business that's been developed by their family. So you want to plan for your business, because if you, properly incorporate a company, that's got indefinite life. If you've built something of value, if you've created jobs for people, you want it to live on beyond you. And at some point, most people want to try to retire a little bit. Small business owners, that is a 24/7 job. There's no such thing as retiring when you're continuing to own your business and manage it yourself. So it's something that people should plan with, because you're planning for your business to succeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. Something came to mind for me. I have a client that has a nice restaurant in town here. And because of divorce, you have a husband and a wife that are sitting there in a successful business, or actually ex-husband, ex-wife, that are still forced to be partners. How do you deal with clients when you come in and you see a partnership or more than two in the business? How do you deal with teaching them how to keep that business in line and make sure that everybody's goals are accomplished?
That can be one of the death knells of a business, is the fact that the partners have either, even if they're married or not married, they've fallen out of love with each other and they don't want to work with each other anymore. And kind of the planning to sell your company is one mindset to have, because you're thinking, hey, this is going to succeed. But by doing so, by taking care of proper agreements among the owners and make sure your capitalization is proper, it takes care of all these issues. If you take care of the fact that, okay, one of us might need to buy the other out, one might, die or become incapacitated or need to move across the country, how are we going to deal with that? And you make sure you've got a good agreement in place that's going to come to a fair price, and you make sure you've got some sort of mechanism to finance the buyout so that you can keep the life of the company. Nothing kills a business worse than when two business owners go sideways with each other, start litigations.
Can't get anything done.
Can't get anything done. And it costs so much. It can really,
Yeah, you either got to find a good way to separate or do a reality show, right, Al? Right?
Reality. It's all about reality.
Right.
Yeah. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea, Kaye, and Al Arias. If you're in business for yourself or want to be a guest on Close Up on San Diego Business, call us. We want to hear from you. You can call my office at 1-800-341-5433 or contact us via email at bwaxler@barrywaxler.com. Let us know, and we'll try to find time to get up close and personal right here on air with us. So we've been talking about helping to manage the business, buy-sell agreements. So you do buy-sell agreements as well?
I do buy-sell agreements, absolutely. That's something that anybody at the formation, if there's going to be multiple owners, you just have to plan for that, the possibility that it's going to happen. Even if the business succeeds, one of you may want to move on and do something different.
David, do you have thoughts on the choice of entity in situations that you described where there are multiple partners and, almost for certain there's going to be a falling out somewhere along the way?
For most business owners, a corporation is a better choice than a limited liability company. A limited liability company is like a kit car. You really have to tailor all the terms of it and who's in charge and that sort of thing. I've seen disputes erupt with a limited liability company that would be resolved by the general rules that are provided at law under a corporation. Then there's a question of the tax status of that corporation. Most small business owners and even most medium-sized business owners, the buyer is going to want to buy the assets of the company, not the equity. And so you need to be an S corporation, which is a flow-through tax entity which is only taxed to the owners. And that way there's only one level of gain on the sale of the assets. If you have a C corporation, which is like a separately taxed entity, the corporation gets taxed on the gain in the assets, and then the shareholders get taxed again. You're going to get substantially less money on that big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So it is crucial to pick the right form of entity for the management issues and that sort of thing, which is usually a corporation. Real estate entities can be limited liability companies. There's tax advantages to being a limited liability company. Most operating companies should be a corporation, and most businesses, unless they're going to be really big, a publicly traded company, for tax reasons, you probably want to be a flow-through entity, an S corporation.
Great. Great. You know, I see here that you do a lot of general practice. So when you take on a new client, typically it's a small business owner. You want to help them manage from start to finish. Do you do different types of estate work for them, the general trusts or anything to go along with the rest of your business representation?
The estate planning is something that someone should address at the time that they're setting up a company, because immediately I'll be like, well, you're going to put your stock into a trust, right? And then they'll say, well, what trust? That's one thing I don't do. So I send that out to an estate planning specialist.
Good. But you have the resources so we can get everything covered for our clients all from one resource, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a good network of people that are specialists that when issues come up for my clients, I make sure I know the right specialist to bring in on these things.
Great. So you were a former Wall Streeter. There's such an image about you Wall Street types, so you went from the tough streets of Wall Street to an even darker world, as people joke about, by being an attorney.
Yeah.
You went from one Shark Tank to another, in other words. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I went to Wall Street to work as an attorney, and I was doing corporate securities work, and I was doing work for big established issuers like Merrill Lynch's treasury work, selling bonds in Europe and that sort of thing. And there may be a nice row of zeros there on the dollar amount of the transactions. But with a deal like that, there's not as much recreating the wheel. There's not as much creativity. You got to stick with what's been done, tried and true before. Representing a small business is an art, because you really do. They don't have a $1 billion budget, and they are coming up with something unique, and they often want to negotiate the terms. It really, I enjoy the work for small businesses and medium-sized companies so much more than just churning out the same sort of bond offering or securities offering that.
No, so you don't mind all the attorney jokes?
Not at all.
Okay.
Well, I take pride in being a corporate lawyer. Frankly, we're one brand of lawyer that really does help business and put money back into people's pocket.
It's cool just dealing with the owner. In big business, you deal with an army.
Oh, yeah. So interesting. Well, I see here that you do a lot of work with startups as well, which is part of what we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. I would love to introduce you. We've got a group that we work with called Monos Accelerator that's starting up in the Silicon Valley, but they've got entities all over the world, and it's based on technology startups in the Latino community, and they've got a lot of great people behind them. So. Let me see if I can introduce you and see if you can help out a little bit.
Absolutely, I'd love to help them.
So yeah, we have a lot of great people behind that. It's actually Jennifer Lopez's family and a number of other. It's coming in a lot into the celebrity world, so we'll do that. But,
are there any particular types of industries you deal with more? Like, are you more geared towards manufacturing, small businesses, or service related? Does it really matter?
I've got a broad range of industry expertise. I've got a couple of little sweet spots. I help surgeons who own these ambulatory surgical centers, and they've got some unique rules they've got to comply with. I do have some high-tech clients. I've got some clients in sports. I've got some restaurant owners. But it's a hodgepodge of industries.
Yeah, that healthcare professional environment is really nasty from an income tax standpoint, and I'm curious about what you've discovered that benefits healthcare professionals in terms of lower income taxes.
Well, the doctors need to think through the flow-through aspects of income just like any other business owner does. But, yeah, they're generally in the higher rate categories here. One unique thing that all business owners can remember from doctors is they tend to have falling out quite more often than other business owners do with each other. But they always seem to have enough money to buy each other out. If there is enough money to buy out your former business partner, you will not have litigation. If you don't have enough money to buy each other out and you're fighting over how much the company's worth, that's when things typically become a dispute. So that's if you plan to how are you going to finance the buyout of your business partner, that's crucial to avoiding a dispute at the end. The taxes that doctors face, there's a lot of different things they could do. One thing, again, is going back to this S corporation. You can avoid taxes, your payroll taxes, on distributions out of your S corporation. So you can set up your practice as an S corporation. If you pay yourself a reasonable salary, then that's a reasonable salary, and you only pay payroll taxes on that income. The rest you can distribute to yourself out as the owner of the company. Right. That's one thing a doctor can do.
Right, and a little bit of financial planning ahead of time to make sure that our assets there to use as we go. We're running a little short on time, getting ready to go into a break. So before we finish, David, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
If you look us up online, it's www.thekinglawgroup.com. My email address is on that site, and our phone number is on there as well, 619-702-2008. We're in downtown San Diego, 707 Broadway.
Great, thanks. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working to make a difference in our community. This is financialnewsandtalk.com, and I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more Homegrown Business Close Up and our next guest.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. When it comes to the impact of the government shutdown, some metro area housing markets could feel it more than others. That's according to Trulia's chief economist, Jed Kulko.
D.C. is at the top of the list, but not that far behind are metros across the country. More than 10% of total local wages come from federal paychecks in the Virginia Beach metro area, Honolulu, and Dayton. And looking across the country, we see a large share of money coming from the federal government in El Paso, Colorado Springs, Oklahoma City, lots of small to mid-sized metros all across the country.
On the other hand, Kulko says San Jose, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Lakeland, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina, Orange County, California, Akron, Ohio, New York, and Baton Rouge are among the metro area housing markets less likely to be affected. And he says the housing market where the government shutdown will be felt the least is Fairfield County, Connecticut. That's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Welcome back to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we're looking at homegrown businesses close up. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here on financialnewsandtalk.com with Andrea Kaye and Arias. Our next guest, Tom Van Betten from Cassidy, Turley. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
Great. So tell us a little bit about you, and tell us Cassidy Turley is a new name in our community here. So tell us a little background there on you and Cassidy Turley.
Yeah, quickly, I'll start with Cassidy Turley. It's interesting, in the first time in 50 years, there's been a new national rollout brand. So Cassidy Turley is really an East Coast, Midwest-based firm, but we were become a corporate store owned by Cassidy Turley just recently. So we were BRE for 25 years, owned by the brokers, and we sold up to corporate a few months ago, and we're excited to see the economies and the opportunities that it created. We have, as a company, 60 U.S. offices and over 3,800 professionals. Wow. Myself, been in the business about 22 years, was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, where my father was a professor at UNLV, and I say I escaped from Las Vegas about 13 years ago. I had a great run there, and it was a lot of fun and learned a lot, but, really excited to raise my family here in San Diego.
Yeah. What makes San Diego a different market than Vegas?
Well, when I first got in the business in 91, was selling a lot of land to developers, and they were building industrial buildings, and we were selling them and leasing them. It was the market basically doubled during the 90s in Las Vegas, so it was a very quickly maturing market and very exciting times. When I moved to San Diego, I looked around and said, there's no land out here. So I knew I had to change my business model, and that's when I decided to get into the leasing side of things, and decided to represent some of the larger office owners in town, including the Irvine Company, Kilroy Realty, Prudential, et cetera. Right. From there, I dabbled in investments, and then sold about $300 million worth of commercial real estate, institutional office buildings. And then the recession came, and I knew that was going to be a bit of a speed bump. So I committed all my time and resources into what I do now and have for the last 5 years, and that's tenant representation. So I help businesses, I represent businesses in their negotiations against landlords.
Okay. So you only represent the tenants.
That's right.
Okay.
I say when I had a lot of listings for a while, and then when I committed to tenant representation, I say I burned all my boats, and I couldn't so I am committed to tenant representation, and really been excited. It's been a very best part of my career so far.
Great. So you do mostly office leasing and representing the. Well, you're not representing the sellers. Tell us a little bit about the leasing. What do you do? What makes you different than everybody else? Because there's a lot of competition in town.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition. What makes me different, I think, is I have a truly a holistic view of the business. Because remember I mentioned I used to sell land to developers, and then I did industrial leasing, and then I did landlord leasing, and then I did investments. So when you're creating a negotiating strategy on behalf of a business, and as you're determining how to best negotiate with that landlord, I pull from all these different experiences, understanding the landlord's financial position, their profile, how much debt do they have, what's their long-term goals. Because I used to work for them, I can almost reverse engineer the more effective negotiating strategies versus a lot of my competition were just maybe we're given a phone and a phone book and told to set up meetings.
So you do a lot of research before you represent. Meaning you do a lot of background work on the properties that your tenants are looking to lease.
Yeah, matter of fact, and I might not do the research myself, but I get to benefit from, we're the largest firm in town, Cassidy, Turley. So we have a capital markets team. We have the largest research department in town. Great. With 7 people working there. So essentially I can pull from all this managed information that our company supports, and from there drive strategies and tactics when representing these companies.
Yeah, I think I read, you don't seem like the kind of guy who's going to pat yourself on the back or toot your horn. So let me do it for you. I think I read that you were one of the top 5 commercial real estate guys in San Diego. I mean, that's amazing given the competition. I mean, what's the secret to your success? And we'll make sure none of your competitors are listening. But tell us what the secret is to that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where that top 5 came from, but I definitely like to be considered one of the top. And I think that my secret is a passion for results. I mean, I really take it personal because I saw for several years of my career the advantage in negotiations that a landlord has because they're in the business of negotiating, on real estate. And all their people are in the business. And so the businesses that are leasing space, maybe it approaches their agenda every 5 years or something, and they got to take on, it's a David and Goliath scenario. And so really to be able to help businesses passionately negotiate for more favorable terms, which really helps keep San Diego companies growing, keeps them in San Diego, and be more profitable businesses. So I guess I just take it personal, their success.
Great. Yeah, and that's good for everybody because you hit on a point that I think is very important for people to understand is that you're one of the people that keeps businesses here, and that means keeps jobs here, and that means keeps revenue here for San Diego.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, it's too easy to have everybody pack up and move out of town. We want to keep them here and keep the business flowing here.
But Tom, what kind of concessions do you look for? Free rents or extended rents or extra space or
Well, it's a good question. There's a lot of buckets to pull from when you're negotiating, and sometimes concessions are the most important. So really understanding what a company's needs are is also a differentiator, I think, on how I approach the business. For instance, if a company is really needs to from a cash flow perspective, really benefit from concessions like free rent and things like that, then of course we'll leverage that and structure it accordingly. Many companies maybe have to straight line their rent over the term of the lease, so they might not get as much of a benefit of free rent up front, but maybe they need flexibility. Maybe they are a hyper growth company. They need to be able to get out of a lease in 3 years. So it's a good question because there's probably 100 ways that I can help a company save money or build flexibility, and it just depends which one is important to them, and those percolate to the top through a needs analysis, process.
That's great. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with co-hosts Andrea Kaye and Arias, and our guest, Tom Van Betten. Tom, we talked a little bit before the show on something that kind of touched my world, too. I do a lot of financial planning, retirement planning, et cetera. I see, the terms in here that say that you do planning for clients. Tell us a little bit about what a plan looks like when you're doing a tenant representation.
Well, it can mean a lot of things, but typically most companies should have a real estate plan or strategy, and maybe it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, depending on where that company is at in its cycle. For instance, I have a client here in the neighborhood, Viasat, which is one of the great employers here in San Diego. They have a 10-year real estate plan, and they really try to line up building availabilities with headcount growth. What a concept, right? We need a building, and you need to understand the costs associated to filling that seat. So I think rarely are people proactive in developing what their commercial real estate plans should be as compared to reactive, as a lease expiration approaches. So we typically like to get out in front of that and give them plenty of time. One of the biggest mistakes companies make is not having enough time as their lease expiration approaches. And so planning can mean a lot of different things, but in all cases, time is leverage.
Well, time is everything. So that's great. What else can you tell us about you and Cassidy Turley?
I have a question. How do you know, or do you know, and do you guys have? You've got so many resources in this company. Do you have somebody who's scouting to see who might be interested in coming to San Diego, so that you try to woo them here and try to? How does that work? Because there's got to be a lot of people investigating San Diego and thinking about moving their business here. How do people capture the prospective San Diego businesses?
Well, it's a great question, and it's difficult from our firm's perspective and me as an individual to have an impact that essentially is a global reach, right? We could be pulling them from Korea or whatever. We're looking for companies to come here. So how it is important to me, and I've recognized that. So what I've done is volunteered to lead the San Diego Economic Development Corporation's Red Carpet, Red Flag Committee. So what we do is when their company is considering coming to town, we bring the business community together to roll out the red carpet and really help them understand what a day in the life is like working here in San Diego. Of course, leveraging on that quality of life aspect. And then the red flag, when a company's considering leaving town, through the business community, we identify that company and then see if we can triage any problems they might be occurring.
What kind of reasons are you seeing that people are thinking about leaving town?
Well, a lot of reasons. For instance, we recently saw American Specialty Health's moving back to Indiana. A lot of things. It's labor costs of housing. Talent is sometimes mentioned. We're really trying to leverage our great universities here locally, and the curriculum of the universities need to kind of tie in with the next big cluster here in San Diego. And so that's also part of what our committee does there at the EDC.
That's great. Well, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so it's Tom Van Betten. My direct line at Cassidy Turley is 858-546-5488. My email is tom.vanbetten@cassidyturley.com, and that's tom.vanbett at cassidyturley.com. And again, if anyone would like to speak for 5 or 10 minutes about their situation on real estate, I'm happy to offer advice and be a resource, because just a few minutes in conversation might be able to save you a lot of money.
That's fabulous. So anyway, you are listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working to make a difference in our community. Thanks for being with us, Tom. This is financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more Homegrown Business Close Up.
With the Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm John Tucker. Academic work has found that smaller banks are better with soft information, unquantifiable data that's opaque to credit rating tools but can help a loan officer make a decision. A study presented at the St. Louis Federal Reserve recently goes a step further, looking into which community banks do this best. The answer, rural banks. The authors of Small Business Lending and Social Capital discovered that this trust works better for community banks in rural areas. The study comparing the performance of small business loans at banks with assets of less than $1 billion. Loans between rural banks and rural borrowers, the study found, were only 70% as likely to default as those between urban banks and urban borrowers. The numbers get even better for what the authors call hyper-rural banks and borrowers. It's not that rural loan officers are generally smarter or rural borrowers are more trustworthy. It's that when people know each other, loan performance improves. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
Someday, I'll wake up on a yacht in the Caribbean. Someday, I'll sell my screenplay and change careers.
Someday, I'll drive my very own Mercedes-Benz.
Someday is today. With a certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz, driving the car of your dreams is a lot closer than you think. Each of our certified pre-owned vehicles undergoes an exhaustive process of analysis, inspection, and reconditioning until it meets the uncompromising standards of a Mercedes-Benz. Plus, every one is available with an optional extended limited warranty for up to 7 years or 135,000 total vehicle miles. And now, with 3 months of Sirius XM satellite radio.
Someday, I'll stop saying someday.
Don't wait. It's time to love what you drive. Available only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer. Visit today for exceptional financing.
Welcome back to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we're looking at homegrown businesses close up. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, and I'm here on financialnewsandtalk.com with Andrea Kaye and Arias. Our next guest, we've saved the best for last.
Indeedy.
Gina Champion-Cain from A&I Development and Love Surf. Did I say that right? Love Surf?
You did say that right.
That's good. That's good. I should know
Starts
that here in
with
San
a really
Diego.
cool name.
Yeah, it does start with a cool name.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. What's your background?
Well, my background is real estate development, primarily. Did a lot of redevelopment work in downtown San Diego and enjoyed it very much. It was wonderful. And then moved my sights to the beach.
To the beach. What do you do? What are you doing at the beach now?
Started a boutique hospitality company called Love Surf. And we are taking vacation beach rentals and running them like a hotel.
Wow.
Ooh.
So
you got my attention. Now, what does that mean you run them like a hotel? How so?
Well, we took really the mom and pop format of the vacation rental model and decided to apply it towards a hotel environment. So we supply concierge services. We literally have these as turnkey homes at the beach. So all you really need is the clothes on your back, your bathing suit and your suitcase, and you can just come on in, and there are boogie boards and beach cruisers and wine in the refrigerator. It just goes on and on.
That's great.
See, I love that because, I've got some family members that like the idea of staying in a home. But for me, in a vacation, like a house or an apartment, but for me, I always like some of the advantages of a resort, a hotel. And it sounds like you've combined the two.
Well, that was the whole intention. And also a big part of our business model is to be pet friendly. A lot of folks like to travel with their dogs primarily. And we wanted to celebrate the love of dog and environment together on vacation.
Wow. You took that into the restaurant business too, didn't you?
I did.
Tell us about that.
We opened a restaurant in Pacific Beach called the Patio on Lamont Street. It had been a restaurant, formerly the Lamont Street Grill, for about 30 years. Great restaurant. And the owners were retiring and going full-time into the catering business. And I had an opportunity to buy the real estate and revamp it into a neighborhood eatery, casual neighborhood eatery that is pet-friendly. And we're doing very well, and it's a lot of fun.
What are you? And so people can bring their dogs to the restaurant and have a meal. Didn't you say there was something that you fed the dogs there too that was a little different?
We do, and the patio area, which is why it's called the patio, is a lovely environment with a living green wall and a fireplace, and that's where the dogs are allowed to accompany their owners. We have fresh dog biscuits that Chef John Madal makes from the leftovers of liver and bacon and any kind of meat source. They're organic, they're wonderful, the dogs love them. And if you come in, if it's you're a pet with you, you can even have half off on any dog named drink.
What kind of drinks do you feed the dogs?
Well, the dogs do have their own dog grog, interestingly enough, which is from a brewmaster out of Oregon. And it doesn't have any beer in it, but it is made out of very healthy ingredients that are byproducts of the brewing process.
That's interesting. So you can go out and have a brew, and your pup can have one too.
That's exactly right.
So.
Hey, maybe I'll bring Pickles down there, and we'll have a canine Cosmo to go with her biscuit. No, Pickles and I are fans of the place. I live up the hill from it.
So
wonderful.
Yeah.
No, I got my doggy Grey Goose straight up with Olive's dirty.
So, what do you have plans to expand the restaurant business?
We do. We planning on expanding the entire Love Surf line, Love Surf brand, and in that is another patio. And we are currently in negotiations. Actually, we just finished negotiations. We have solidified a deal that we'll be able to announce in a week to open up our second patio. And we're also looking for a third location somewhere in North County Coastal.
Well, is this all designed to be a corporate venture, or are you planning to franchise out anything? What's the expansion plan?
Well, it's a wonderful question, and yes, the whole notion is to take Love Surf and move it first up the West Coast and have a business here, obviously in San Diego, which is home, and then proceed up to the other beach communities up the coast of California, and yes, we'd like to see it grow to the East Coast. Right down here, we're Love San Diego Surf. We would like to be Love Santa Barbara Surf, Love Carmel Surf, Love Dana Point Surf. So we have big plans.
That's great. But
great. You're not a homegrown surfer girl, though. You're really from Michigan, right? How'd you end up out here, and was it the love of surf that brought you out here?
It was. I was very tired of the winters in Michigan. And when I graduated from the University of Michigan undergraduate school, I decided if I'm going to come out and do some graduate work, it's got to be on the beach, in the surf, and take my law books out there and try not to get them too wet.
You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kaye and Arias, and our guest, Gina Champion-Cain.
Now, how did you go from being a lawyer to being a hot real estate developer?
Well, I never really wanted to practice law. I thought that I was a philosophy major in undergraduate school, much to my dad's dismay, and he was hoping I'd be an accountant because he always thought I could get a job at least. But I loved philosophy. I know, go figure.
He didn't think there was a lot of jobs as philosophers?
No, he really thought that hanging out at the street corners and being a philosopher was not going to be a good job for me. So I went to law school thinking it'd be a good education, always had my sights on being a developer. I love real estate, and I love seeing transformation in communities. I like to take existing products, so redevelopment's really my specialty. I don't like to just tear things down. I like to see how I can re-energize something, doing something new with it, breathing new life into it, similar to what I did to the patio on Lamont Street. So that's really been a love of mine, and I really celebrate the historicity of buildings and of communities, and very into the sustainability of development. I've been doing that for a long time before going green was really a sexy thing.
Wow. So your main focus is the Love Surf and taking it up the coast. What's that going to look like when you go back east? That's an interesting thought, to have your pooch go with you into the middle of a snowstorm into a restaurant, but it might be a nice stop off. I don't know.
I think I'm really focusing when we go to the East Coast, and again the primary focus is West Coast, of course. It would be the South East. So Florida is a pretty long state. So I think I have some cities I can tackle there before I have to worry about going to snow country.
Yeah,
I think your approach, particularly with the patio, it makes me wonder if you didn't bring some of your philosophy background to your real estate in the way that you capture the community and the style of the community and the mindset of the community. Do you think that there's a little bit of connection there?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because I think when I go into the restaurant business and folks said, oh, geez, don't expand too quickly. You can see others that have done it. It's not necessarily a good thing. But I don't approach it like that. I approach it by each neighborhood. So each neighborhood has its own ethos. It has its own drive. It has its own desires and what it wants in its restaurant. And yes, there'll be a patio in Lamont. There'll be a patio on other streets in different neighborhoods. But the restaurant business, to me, has to be very neighborhood-centric. And so, yes, I want to understand the philosophy of that neighborhood. I want to understand what do they see, what do they want in their local neighborhood eatery. And I think that's the approach, even in design elements. You'll go into this next restaurant we build, and yes, it'll look like a patio. You'll see elements of our sustainability approach that we will take. You'll see some similar features, but it'll be more in tune to that particular neighborhood. You'll see elements of design that fall within that neighborhood, and even food selections that cater more to that demographic. So I think that's very important to me, and you're right, perhaps that's part of my philosophy background.
Yeah, so each restaurant's going to have a different look, taste, feel, a different menu to many of the restaurants.
Well, it'll always have the core. It will be a patio, and it will always have a patio with a fireplace and a living green wall. You'll notice the big, beautiful sliding wooden doors that are made out of recycled wood. That'll be a continuing element. There will always be elements to it that match every patio that you see, and the same signature dishes we'll have at all the restaurants. But you're right, it will definitely blend into that neighborhood wherever it goes. It'll celebrate the specifics of a neighborhood. For instance, in the PB location, you'll see Sector 9 skateboards hanging on the wall as pieces of art with a big surfer dude mural. You won't see that in the next location. It'll be a very different feel because that neighborhood's different. So we're very neighborhood centric. We want the neighbors to feel that this is their restaurant.
Well, I don't think I can bring my kids by there because they're going to want me to start getting some more animals so we can go back over and over again. So,
and maybe in Florida, people can bring their pet alligators to the patios down there.
They'll represent interesting things for my lawyer to take care of. So,
now, if you branch East Coast, will it be just with your restaurants, or will you also your hospitality brand as well?
Oh no, it'll be a Love Surf. Love Surf comes. The vacation rentals really are the focal point of the business model, having the different homes, and they're all themed differently and really cater to a luxurious lifestyle of vacation and vacationing with your pet if you so choose. And the patio locations will follow from that. Also, we have a retail store because we have our own brand. We trademarked the logo of the Love Surf brand, and we have a retail store in Mission Beach. We will also have retail stores in many markets, all the markets in which we have Love Surf vacation homes and patios, because it's the brand. It's the whole loving the surf, loving the environment, loving your animal.
That's great. Bringing together the real estate, the hospitality industry, and it's a beautiful match for everything, including bringing your pets in with you.
Gil, you're incredibly strategic. Yeah. I'm listening to this story, and it just has so many components that seem completely thought through. Where did that come from?
God only knows. It's my. You know what it came from? It came from my desires as being a consumer, going into traveling, how I like to travel, loving the beach, loving the environment, loving good food, and a wonderful place to hang out with friends. And I thought, as a consumer, I've been disappointed fairly often in the lack of quality and customer service and care and passion that many businesses present. And I thought there's got to be a better way to not only run a successful enterprise, but to love what you're doing and see the love and the joy in other people's faces, because that really makes anything you do successful. So it really is, in part, derived from my selfishness, because I wanted to have fun places to vacation and eat and shop.
Wow, that's great. Well, we're running short on time. Tell our listeners how we can get in touch with you.
Oh, geez. Well, you can always find me at the restaurant, the Patio on Lamont Street. And our website is www.thepatiosd.com. And from there, you can always navigate to, it'll take you to our Love Surf website, which is love-surf.com, and you'll be able to find us.
Great. Well, thanks for being with us. We're running out of time. I'd like to thank my co-host, Al Arias of AV Arias & Company, and Financial News and Talk's very own Andrea Kaye. We've had a lot of fun with our guests this week. I'd like to thank everybody, Gina and Tom and David. Al, tell our audience how they can get in touch with your firm, too.
Well, we have a website, www.avariasco.com, and telephone number is 619-296-2123. Call us.
Great. Well, remember, if you have anything that you think would be beneficial to our show, or if you or someone you know would like to be a guest, you can contact us toll-free at 1-800-341-5433, or log on to my website, www.barrywaxler.com. That's BARRYWAXLER.com, or email me at bwaxler@barrywaxler.com. Thanks so much for listening. We look forward to being back again same time next week.